Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I bring you a review for the new Masters of the Universe Origins Eternian Palace Guard. This figure is a special release, and while it is essentially a deluxe figure in both price and layout, it is being sold in this kind of special edition box, very reminiscent of that comes with things like mounts and vehicles. I believe this little set here is an online exclusive. I don't think it's going to be sold in stores, correct me if I'm wrong there. And this pack is interesting because it serves as potentially two different characters. It can be a Palace Guard, like you see here, or you can swap some bits out and turn it into the vintage head sculpt version of Man-at-Arms. So in this case, you're getting two toys in one. Now normally, I don't do this, but because you can make two separate characters out of the parts included here, I went and bought a second one. So I'll be able to show off both the Palace Guard and the Man-at-Arms for you simultaneously. So that's something I'm pretty excited about. And because it'll be two figures at once, that'll make this review a little bit unique. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the Palace Guard's packaging, then we'll open it up. I'll be showing off both versions of this toy at the same time. We'll check out the accessories, posability, all that fun stuff. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our Palace Guard comes in, like I said, this larger figure style box right here. Got a big open window where you can see the fully assembled guard, you can see his shield, and then you can see his alternate components that you can, swap in to create the classic Man-at-Arms. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, the difference between this Man-at-Arms head sculpt and the one that came in Wave 1 is that the Wave 1 figure had an updated head that included his mustache from the animated series. The original Man-at-Arms toy didn't have a mustache, it was clean shaven. So, there has been some demand for a truly vintage-looking Man-at-Arms, much like, with the vintage head He-Man, Skeletor, all that. So now, through this set, you can have that. So it's pretty cool. A little top flap here is really cool. You can see Man-at-Arms in his vintage style leading like an entire platoon of these Palace Guards against these glowing green skeleton warriors, which I'd still really love to get these guys. We've seen them in some other package art too. Here, you have Moss Man erupting from the ground with his mace. And then over here, you get a skeleton warrior guy coming out, and it looks like he's being attacked by one of Moss Man's vines. Now, I'm filming this a little out of order from another video I'm doing, like simultaneously, but this is the second time we've seen Moss Man hinted at in some packaging here very recently. I think that's a sign. Like, once is like, oh, it's a cameo. Twice, like in the same wave, I think they're trying to tell us something, and I'm pretty excited for this. On the back, you get this other bit of artwork. You got some flavor text. Says, as the first line of defense, the Eternian Palace Guards protect King Randor and Queen Marlena from outside threats. And you can see that's just what they're doing here. You have these Palace Guards confronting this wizard-like entity who's, holding some sort of a evil pendant. I'm not sure who this guy is. I haven't seen him before. Some other Palace Guard? Obviously you got Tila here. You have Randor and Marlena in their older style, which makes them look, older. And then we have our little crystal Man-at-Arms thing going on here. Now that's interesting, because obviously that's not included here. And I know that this is a reference to one of the episodes of the TV show, so perhaps another hint at an upcoming figure. It is really intriguing. Maybe we'll see him in the same wave as Moss Man. Definitely looking forward to that if it's true. All right, now our little action feature callouts. You can see it says replace armor and weapons and swap heads for Man-at-Arms. So it just shows you, what the whole gimmick of this release is. Over here, we get our Wave 7 cross-sells. So you got your vintage head He-Man and Skeletor, and then you have your Lords of Power Beastman, your Eternian Goddess, Webstor, and Stinkor, and then you also get the Wind Raider. All right, so that's the packaging. I gotta say, it looks very nice. The colors are very vivid looking. This is a very eye-catching little box here that our toys come in. But of course, I don't buy my toys for the box, so let's go ahead and open this thing up. Okay, now we have both variations of this figure out of the package. The one on the left done up like a Palace Guard, the one on the right like a vintage Master-at-Arms. And what separates these two configurations, one, you have different armaments here. You also get the Palace Guard getting the arm and leg armor on his right side as well as the left, new chest piece, and then a different head. Now what's interesting is that these head sculpts appear to be almost exactly the same. And what I mean by that is, aside from this face mask, it appears to be the same piece. When you look at the details on the helmet, the same exact details, and then the face there is an actual fully sculpted face underneath this mask that you can just kind of barely see. So it's interesting because this mask is not a separate piece from the helmet. It's not like they just kind of glued it on. It is part of this, so it seems they just had two toolings of the helmet, one with the mask, one without, but all other details being the same. Now, that does create a bit of an issue that I'm going to touch on here shortly, and, we'll get into that. But for what these two are, I think they are very cool. The Palace Guard is, already doing his own thing, and then the Master at Arms, he's an especially good value if you don't already have the Wave 1 Master at Arms figure. Like, if you just need a Master at Arms toy, here you go. So that could, motivate somebody to actually buy two of these rather than just have, the Palace Guard. We are going to see, however, that this Master at Arms is really not a good vintage upgrade to the Wave 1 figure. And to help make my point, here is the Wave 1 Man-at-Arms figure, and you can see they're very similar. Mold-wise, they're exactly the same, save for the face sculpt right here. And for anyone that doesn't know, the original Master at Arms toy, had a face like this. The mustache was later added to the cartoon to make him look, more old and fatherly. And then when they released Wave 1 of Origins, they still kind of had the mindset of revisiting the figures, but providing updates to put them more in line with, more recent depictions. And that hasn't always been a popular route. That's why we ended up with a vintage head He-Man. That's why we ended up with this vintage face Man-at-Arms. However, as he stands, he is overall less accurate to the vintage toy than this one. For one, you can see he's got this red paint app right here in the middle of the belt. And while it does add a nice bit of detail, the original toy just had a solid blue belt like this. He also has painted arm guards, which again are an issue because on the vintage toy, just like our Wave 1 figure, they're just colored green like the rest of him. Like, they weren't supposed to really look like arm guards. It was supposed to look like he was just wearing like a solid green suit. So they just kind of glossed over that. Now, there is a slight difference in orange color used between these two figures, and I'll be honest, I don't know which one of those shades is more accurate to the vintage toy, because any pictures I have, to look at are like really old stock photos or toys that have, been aging for the last like 40 years, so it's hard to say on that front. So I'm not really gonna stress over which shade of orange is the better shade. But up to this point, I was thinking, hey, you know what, no big deal. Let's swap the heads on these two. That way you could have like a truly vintage Master at Arms, and then you get one that looks more like the show appearance. And in fact, since, this comes with the extra armor for the arm and shoulders, you can make him look even more like the TV show character by attaching that. So he'll get the mustache plus the full set of armor. Pretty cool, right? Except, this new toy, even though it has the right face, it has the wrong helmet. The vintage toy's helmet looked like this. It had all this extra detailing on it. This is just the Palace Guard's helmet without the mask, and as such lacks a lot of the detailing, especially around the front, and then even changes the detailing that's there to match that. So that really creates an issue. Now, if you are very enterprising and very confident in your ability to customize toys and modify them, there is a solution. The head and helmet are separate pieces. The helmet's just kind of like a rubber piece that glues onto it. So if you feel confident removing that helmet carefully, either through, getting something in there to like break the glue or maybe melt the glue, and then re-glue it to the other head, you can do that. But for people that either don't feel comfortable permanently modifying their toys or don't want to do it because it will ruin the value of the toy as like an original figure, that creates a bit of an issue. It creates it to where even if you head swap them, you're never going to have the most accurate vintage Man-at-Arms toy that you can. And when I realized that upon, taking these out of the package and looking at them, I was very disappointed. I'm like, how? How do you go so far out of your way to make this set that's made to double as, the version of the character we've kind of been waiting on, and you screw it up so badly? Honestly, the paint apps I can forgive, right? Because it is the same toy as your guard, so you can't really do anything about that unless you include entirely new arms, entirely new pelvic piece to swap in, which would drive the cost of the setup, very far. But I was thinking, at least if you have this one, you can recreate the vintage version, and you can't, because they use the same exact helmet design for this head that they did for the guard. I don't get it. I mean, this sculpt's available. I don't understand why they didn't use it. I mean, it is a separate piece from the head anyway, so all you gotta do is have this sculpt with this one and glue them together. I don't know. But I was very disappointed to realize that, because it means I'm never gonna have that perfect vintage Master at Arms. Which, I mean, first of all, don't be wrong, it's like total first world problem. And a lot of people probably gonna be like, who cares what the helmet looks like? And that's cool, that's cool. Like, if you don't care, have at it, man, it's perfect. But I think it's disappointing because it comes so close and then misses the mark. And I think that's where the issue is. Okay, for a bit of a proof of concept, I've gone ahead and just kind of done what I'm talking about. Going to put the mustached head on this new, more painted body, and also give him the extra armor. So he does end up looking a lot like the character does in the cartoon. So if you want to create a very cartoon-accurate Man-at-Arms, you're covered here. And then over here, you know, we got the non-mustache face on the more vintage-looking body. And, you know, 90% of him works. But again, that helmet, it looks wrong. It looks very plain and bare. And again, it's just frustrating because we're so close. So very close. Again, if you are comfortable customizing your toys and don't mind the value loss that's going to be associated with that, then you can take this a step further and get your truly vintage looking Man-at-Arms. And who knows, I might eventually cave and do just that. Just, you know, separate the glue and then glue it back on. We'll have to see there, but it's still pretty frustrating that, you know, you would even have to go that far to handle this. Lastly, here's a quick little comparison with the Wave 2 figure Scareglow and the yet to be reviewed, so consider this a little sneak peek, Wave 7 figure Stinkor. And the reason I have them out is to show you where this guy's weapons come from. So his little pike or, you know, lance here is actually Scareglow's scythe. Call it a scythe, even though it looks like that, go figure. And then the shield actually comes from Stinkor's shield. So they're not new toolings, they're just borrowed from other figures. But at least they are cast in this, you know, new color here, in this nice metallic silver color. And honestly, I don't have an issue with it. MOTU is known for, you know, recycling parts in, you know, usually creative ways. Though, I do have to point out that both Scareglow and Stinkor are just literal head swaps of Skeletor's body, so, you know, the creativity varies. But yeah, if anyone was wondering where his weapons came from, if they were new, well, this is the source of those. And this completes our look at the Eternian Palace Guard set. I think this set is at its strongest as either a troop builder, since you can have, you know, any number of Palace Guards running around to flesh out your army, or as a way for people that don't have the original Man-at-Arms to get some version of that character. I don't think it's a good replacement for the Wave 1, like if you already have it, for the reasons I mentioned. You know, the whole helmet thing is just a really big letdown. So I would really only buy it for Man-at-Arms if you don't already have one. Otherwise, I mean, the only way that the Wave 1 figure is lacking as far as vintage appeal is the face. Unless, again, you're just really comfortable with modifying your toys and you think you can, you know, swap the helmets around without damaging them, then have at it. But I'd say for most people, probably not worth the effort and, you know, the value drop in your toys. You can also have some fun with this, since it does come with parts for both, of really mixing and matching and just kind of getting creative with, you know, different guards you can create, because who says they all have to wear the exact same suit of armor? So there's a lot of fun to be had here. You know, it's a lot like the upcoming Horde Trooper, where you can just buy multiples and, you know, really flesh out your army. So I think it's really best for that, or for like really hardcore customizer types. So yeah, I think the $20 price point is worth it for all that you get. I think it makes it good, what is, you know, essentially a deluxe figure. And I do believe that if you buy it, especially for, you know, the actual guard portion of this set, I think you'll very much enjoy it. Of course, that is just my take on this set, so now I want to know what you all think. Is this something that you need to have? You know, are you excited to get a Palace Guard, or, you know, maybe a vintage, you know, mustacheless, some sort of version of Man-at-Arms? Or is, you know, something holding you back? Either you're just not interested in generics, or you don't like the fact they really still didn't quite get the Man-at-Arms right. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new Masters of the Universe Origins Eternian Palace Guard. And Man-at-Arms, kind of. And with all that said, I will see you next time.